My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 29 years old, and 11 years ago, my mother erased me from the family like I was never born. Today, I returned to Vermont not just as a woman, but as a mother and the CEO of a multi-million-dollar firm she said I'd never survive without her blessing. The sound of gravel under my heels felt louder than it should have. Maybe because I hadn't stood on this driveway since I was 18, soaking wet and stunned after the slap that split my life in two. I was holding Lily's small hand, now 5 years old, curious with eyes too wise for her age, and I wondered what she would remember from this moment. We had flown in quietly. No family email, no social media hints. I didn't need them waiting at the porch rehearsing their apologies. I needed the truth. Raw, unfiltered. So I parked the black Audi rental across the street and just stood there, watching the front door. The Morgan house hadn't changed much, but it had aged. The shutters were chipped, the hedges wild, and the once white siding had dulled like an old photograph. My mother used to scrub the porch steps every Saturday morning in pearls and lipstick. Now they looked like they hadn't been touched in seasons. Lily tugged my hand. "Is this Grandma's house?" I nodded barely. "It used to be." She smiled, not grasping the weight of the words. "Do you think she has cookies?" I didn't know how to answer that. I wasn't here for cookies. 11 years ago, I left this house with a backpack, $300 in cash, and an acceptance letter from the University of Oregon tucked so deep in my jacket I could feel the corners against my ribs. I had refused to marry Brandon Ellis, a 30-something man with money status and a stare that made my skin crawl. My mother, Evelyn, called it a betrayal. My father, Henry, called it a phase. That night, Evelyn slapped me so hard I tasted blood. Then she told me to leave and never come back. I didn't. Until now. The doorknob felt smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was just my hand that had grown tougher, steadier. I rang the bell. Chimes. The same fake classical melody Evelyn had picked because she said it sounded European. Through the glass panel, I saw movement. A figure, thin, hesitant. The door creaked open. My father stood there in a cardigan and slacks, his face drawn older than his years. He blinked. Once. Twice. "Rachel." The way he said it, soft like a question, told me everything. He didn't know whether to hug me or shut the door. Behind me, Lily peeked around my leg. "This is Lily," I said. "Your granddaughter." His lips parted, but no sound came. Then a voice from deeper in the house. "Henry, who is it?" And then she appeared. Evelyn Morgan. Still polished, still perfect, still terrifying. Her hands froze midair when she saw me. It wasn't just shock. It was calculation. I watched her inventory me, the blazer, the heels, the child. Her mouth twitched but said nothing. I thought I began it was time. Silence. Then Lily whispered, "Hi." It broke something. Maybe not in them, but in me. Because after years of rehearsing this moment in my mind, I didn't feel vengeance. I didn't feel victory. I just felt tired. "Can we come in?" I asked. My father nodded and stepped back. Evelyn hesitated, then turned into the hallway. I caught the faintest murmur. I wasn't expecting this. I wanted to say, "You were never expecting who I became." The house was a museum. Same piano, same paintings. Same smell, lavender and control. But there was dust now. The edges were fraying. The perfection had cracks. Lily sat on the couch, swinging her legs and staring at a glass bowl of potpourri. My mother returned with 2 glasses of water and a juice box, her hands shaking slightly. She said nothing as she set them down. I sat across from her. "I didn't come here to fight," I began. "I just thought Lily deserved to know her family." "That's generous," my mother said tightly, "considering how you left." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I had to. How I left Henry rubbed his forehead. "Rachel, please." "No," I said gently. "She wants to remember it her way." I remember the slap, the rain, the silence when I asked for help. Evelyn's lips pressed into a line. "You rejected everything we gave you. You tried to sell me off to a man who saw me as a trophy wife. You ignored my dreams. You threw me out for saying no." Her face hardened, but then something flickered, regret, guilt. It passed too fast. I stood up. This isn't about the past. I just want to be clear. I'm not here to make peace for you. I'm here for her. I nodded toward Lily, who was now playing with a coaster and humming softly. You want to know your granddaughter, I said. Then prove you're not the people who threw me away. I didn't wait for a response. I bent to Lily. Time to go, baby. But we just got here, she pouted. We'll come back, I said. Maybe. As I turned to leave, Evelyn whispered, Rachel, wait. I paused. I read about you, she said. That interview in Forbes. Your company. Turner and Hart, Morgan and Hart, I corrected. She swallowed. You really built it, I nodded once. From scratch, no ring, no rich husband, just grit. She looked away, and for the first time in my life, Evelyn Morgan had nothing to say. Back in the car, Lily asked, Do you think they liked me? I gripped the steering wheel. I think I said slowly they're just realizing what they missed. As I pulled away, I caught my mother in the window. Just a silhouette. I don't know what she saw when she looked at me, but I know what I saw in her regret, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something else. There's a kind of silence that clings to old walls. It seeps into the paint hides in the corners and waits. Coming back to that house felt like stepping into a memory that didn't want me anymore, but refused to let me go. It's strange how much you remember about the house you grew up in. Not just the layout, but the sounds, the shadows, the way certain stairs creaked more than others. I hadn't been inside the Morgan house for more than 20 minutes, and already everything I'd buried was rising like fog off a lake. I had stood in that same foyer the night my mother told me I was dead to her. Now, here I was, a decade later, holding my daughter's hand in the very place I'd been erased. But this time, I wasn't the child. My childhood in Maple Hill, Vermont looked picture-perfect from the outside. Our house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac lined with trimmed hedges and mailboxes that matched. My mother, Evelyn, kept the lawn trimmed with military precision and demanded that my father repaint the shutters every other year, white always white. No one in the neighborhood ever heard us fight. That was by design. Inside, everything was measured, my clothes, my words, my future. Especially that. My mother was a master of polite cruelty. She never yelled, never lost her temper in public, but her disapproval was sharp, clean, like glass in the throat, and she delivered it with a smile that said, I'm doing this for your own good. My father, Henry, was quieter. An accountant at a firm in Burlington, he came home at 6:30 every night, loosened his tie at precisely 7, and rarely said no to her. He wasn't cruel, just absent in all the ways that counted. I remember once in sophomore year I asked if I could join the track team. Evelyn paused mid-sip of her tea and said, What kind of young lady wants to sweat in front of boys? My father, he blinked, then said nothing. That silence was his way of surviving. But for me, it was betrayal in slow motion. By the time I turned 17, the topic of my future was no longer a discussion. It was a script. You'll marry someone respectable, my mother would say over breakfast, placing a cloth napkin on her lap like it was a crown. A man who can provide, who understands our values. Someone like Brandon Ellis. Brandon. The name still made my skin crawl. He was 32, wealthy, well-connected, son of a property developer who golfed with my father. Brandon had a smile that looked good in photos and eyes that never smiled at all. He'd visit with his parents and stare at me too long over dinner. Once he complimented my perfume. I hadn't been wearing any. I've arranged for him to take you to the spring formal, Evelyn announced one morning as casually as if she were assigning me a science project. He's very taken with you. Taken. Like I was a thing. I wanted to scream. But instead, I hid my college applications under the loose floorboard in my closet. Oregon, Boston, even New Mexico, anywhere far enough to breathe. I used babysitting money to pay the fees. I wrote my essays after midnight, whispering my dreams into the glow of my laptop while the rest of the house slept in silence. When the University of Oregon acceptance arrived in a thick envelope, I held it like a secret lover. The letterhead shimmered with promise. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just felt real for the first time. That same week, Evelyn set the trap. I have wonderful news, she said at dinner, placing her manicured hand over mine. Everything I've done, all my effort, it's led to this. Brandon's parents are coming Saturday. He has something important to ask. My stomach dropped. The only thing worse than being told what my life would become was pretending I had a choice in it. Saturday came like a slow funeral. The house gleamed, the silverware was polished, and I was dressed like a stranger in my own skin. A navy blue cocktail dress Evelyn picked. Pearls, curled hair. I looked like someone else's daughter, and maybe I was. Brandon arrived with a smirk and a velvet ring box. I knew it before he even dropped to one knee. The air turned to syrup. My heart thundered in my ears. "Rachel Morgan," he said, "will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" He didn't ask if I loved him. He didn't care. It was a deal sealed in silence. "I need some air," I said, rising. The porch was cool. The stars were distant. He followed me. Of course he did. That wasn't the response I was expecting. Brandon said, arms crossed, "We barely know each other." He laughed. "Don't be naive. This has been arranged for months. Your mother said you were on board." I felt like vomiting. "You'll live comfortably. No need to work. You'll host events, raise children, and look pretty doing it. That's what wives do." I stared at him, every nerve in my body screaming. What if I want more than that? He smiled, cruel now. "You don't get to want. I am your future." And that was the moment I broke. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. No. When I returned inside, Evelyn's face was tight. Brandon's parents were gathering their coats. My father hovered near the stairs. "What have you done?" she snapped, voice like broken glass. "Do you have any idea what you've just thrown away? I saved myself." Her expression contorted. "Is this about those college applications?" I blinked. She'd found them. My secret plan exposed. "I want a career," I said. "A life. One I choose. You're a disgrace." Then came the slap. And the exile. I still remember packing that night. Not suitcases, just a backpack. A hoodie, jeans, my toothbrush, the Oregon letter. My father met me at the door, his face gray. "Dad, don't let her." He gave me $300. "I'm sorry," he whispered. And then he closed the door. Back in the present, I sat with Lily in our hotel suite, watching her sleep peacefully after our unexpected visit. The room was warm, safe. I stood at the window looking out over Maple Hill. "I'm not that girl anymore," I whispered. "You tried to break me, but I built something stronger." I reached for my phone and opened an email draft to my assistant. Subject: Morgan and Hart, Vermont Office Initiative Body. Let's move forward with the expansion. I'll oversee the launch personally. The past didn't deserve to own me, but maybe it deserved to face me. They say you can't change the past, but the past can sure haunt you, especially when it walks on two legs, still lives nearby, and still thinks it owns your name. I didn't mean to look him up. I was just scrolling through local news after confirming Morgan and Hart's Vermont office expansion with my team. The search was meant for research local business networks hiring pipelines, real estate costs. But then a headline caught my eye like a hook in the chest. Brandon Ellis accepts plea deal in domestic abuse case, published 5 years ago. There was his photo, same square jaw, same crisp haircut. But his eyes, they looked meaner now. Or maybe I just saw them clearly for the first time. The article said his wife had filed multiple reports before the incident that finally broke through. A neighbor called the police after hearing screams. She left him apparently. Smart woman. The story said Brandon's family business had quietly removed him from leadership. No trial, no real consequences. Just a fall from grace swept under a Persian rug. My hands shook on the screen because I realized that could have been me. The next day, I drove to the new office site, a modern brick building near the town square, once a hardware store. It had great bones, high windows, exposed beams, the kind of space that could be transformed into something sharp and creative. Lily was with Ethan, who had flown in with her 2 days after me. He offered to handle some remote meetings while I met with the contractor and scoped things out. After the walkthrough, I grabbed coffee at a cafe 2 blocks away. And that's when I saw him, Brandon Ellis. Still tall, still polished. But something about his stride had changed. A limp. No, not physical. Just slower. He looked right past me, then doubled back. Rachel. I didn't answer right away. I was waiting to feel something. Rage, fear, nothing came. It's you, he said again, stepping closer. I wasn't sure at first. Wow, you look different. Better, I replied, sipping my latte. He chuckled, clearly thrown off. I'd heard rumors. That you made something of yourself. Big business right marketing firm. I said, offices in 3 cities, soon to be 4. He whistled. Guess walking away from me wasn't such a bad move after all. I raised an eyebrow. You think that's what this is about? Brandon shifted. His usual smirk flickered. Look, I know our parents pushed that situation. It wasn't ideal, but I was willing to try. You were young. I was 17, I corrected. 18, wasn't it? The legal line doesn't make it moral. He blinked. Did your wife think it was moral? I asked softly. His expression hardened. That was a misunderstanding. Of course, I said. She misunderstood what exactly. The bruises Brandon's face turned red. You don't know what happened. No, but I know who you are. And I'm grateful every single day that I didn't find out the hard way. He took a breath as if he wanted to argue, then shrugged. Well, sounds like you're doing fine. Exceptionally, I said. But you look small. He flinched. Good. I turned and walked out. Not because I was afraid, but because I had nothing left to prove. That night, Ethan and I sat on the hotel balcony while Lily slept inside. He passed me a glass of wine. So you saw him? He said. I nodded. He's smaller than I remember. That's not him. That's you. You've grown. I looked at him, the man who had stood beside me for 6 years through business pitches and diaper blowouts, late-night panic attacks, and champagne celebrations. You know what the worst part is, I whispered. What, for years, I wondered what would have happened if I stayed. If I married him. I thought, maybe it wouldn't have been that bad. And now I saw it in his eyes. He didn't love women. He wanted to own them. Ethan reached for my hand. And you are absolutely unownable. I laughed, a real one. The kind that shakes something loose inside your ribs. A week later, we hosted the opening event for the Vermont office. Small crowd, local press, business cards exchanged over hors d'oeuvres. Evelyn and Henry didn't show, but I hadn't invited them. The space buzzed with potential. My team looked proud. Lily spun in circles on the polished floors. And me, I stood in the middle of it all, knowing I had come back stronger. Not to seek revenge, but to make the past irrelevant. Brandon Ellis had been a chapter, but I wrote the book. She was the reason I never looked back, the reason I couldn't afford to fall apart. And now in this strange town that once tried to erase me, she was my anchor, my reminder, my second chance to get everything right. Lily was born under low hospital lights in Portland, Oregon, during a rainstorm that washed the whole city clean. The nurse handed her to me, and the first thing I saw were her eyes green alert, unblinking. Like she already knew things, like she already knew me. And I remember whispering something into her tiny ear that night, something I hadn't told anyone before. You'll never be punished for being yourself. That's the promise I've carried every day since. Now, 5 years later, she stood in the middle of the new Morgan and Hart office in Maple Hill, twirling in her cotton dress and singing softly to herself while the adults buzzed around with laptops and clipboards. She had no idea what this place had once been for me, a prison with manicured hedges and designer expectations. To her, it was just another building, just another town. That freedom was the result of every battle I had fought. But freedom, as I was learning, is harder to maintain than to win. 2 days after the opening, I was having breakfast with Lily at the hotel's small dining area. She carefully arranged 3 grapes and 2 Cheerios into a smiley face on her plate, then asked out of nowhere, "Mommy, why don't I have grandparents?" The question stopped me cold. I had prepared for business, investors' legal obstacles, and even running into Brandon, but I had not prepared for that. "You do," I said slowly, sort of. She tilted her head. Like Zoe's with cookies and stories, Zoe was her best friend back in Oregon. Her grandparents picked her up from school on Fridays and brought chocolate chip muffins. I don't know if they're like Zoe's, I said. They're different. She pushed a Cheerio around the table with her finger. Did they die? No, I whispered they just made some mistakes. Big ones, like when I broke the snow globe. Bigger, I thought. So much bigger, but I couldn't tell her that. Not yet. They're still learning how to be better, I offered gently. Sometimes grown-ups need time. She nodded, satisfied with that for now, but her words lingered long after we'd cleared the plates. That afternoon, I dropped by our local HR partner's office to finalize the hiring pool for the new branch. On my way out, I ran into my father, Henry. He was standing in front of the bookstore 2 blocks from Main Street. Same slumped posture. Same cardigan, even in June. "Rachel," he said, startled. "I didn't expect this town's small," I said, arms crossed. "I was hoping we'd run into each other," he admitted. We stood there for a moment, the summer sun casting long shadows on the sidewalk between us. "Do you want to sit?" he asked. We did, at a bench overlooking the park. He cleared his throat. "I know I didn't stop her." That night. I didn't answer. I was afraid, he said. Afraid of losing everything, my career, my place in the family, Evelyn's wrath. "That's the difference between us," I said. "I was afraid too, but I left." He nodded, eyes misting. "I know, and I'm sorry." The apology didn't fix it, not entirely, but it was real. And that was more than I ever thought I'd get. "Lily asked about you," I said. "About why she doesn't have grandparents like her friends." His lips trembled. "Do you want to meet her?" I asked. Officially this time. "Yes," he breathed. God, yes. I brought Lily to the park the next morning. She was holding her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, like a shield. Henry stood near the swings, hands deep in his pockets. "Lily," I said gently, "this is someone very special. His name is Henry. He's my dad." She looked up at him with those wide, searching eyes. "Are you my grandpa?" He nodded, voice rough. "If you'll have me." She tilted her head, considering. "Do you know how to push a swing I used to?" he said. "Okay." She shrugged, handing him the ropes like a deal had been struck. I watched them from the bench, my daughter laughing, my father behind her, awkwardly catching the rhythm. A scene I never imagined I'd witness. Afterward, Lily ran off to the climbing frame. Henry sat beside me again, breathless. "She's wonderful," he said. "She's everything," I replied. Then, after a long silence, he said, "You turned out better than I deserved." I turned to him. "No," I said. "I turned out better than she deserved." That evening, Lily told Ethan I met Grandpa today. "He's not scary. He smells like books." We both laughed. But then she asked, "Will I meet Grandma too?" I froze. Ethan looked at me, giving me space to choose. And I realized I didn't know the answer yet. Not because I was afraid, but because for once I had a choice. And so did she. Some women yell. Some women cry. My mother weaponized silence, and for years I mistook her quiet as strength until I realized it was just fear in a prettier dress. It took another week before I saw her again, not because I was avoiding her, though part of me was, but because I needed time. Time to figure out if the apology I needed, the one I had rehearsed in my head so many times, was something she was even capable of giving. Ethan and I had decided to stay longer in Maple Hill, converting our trip into a working retreat. He handled conference calls from the hotel lobby while I helped the local office get on its feet. Lily adapted quickly, charming the baristas at the cafe next to the office, dragging her bunny around town like royalty, and memorizing every twist of the playground's slide like she'd lived there her whole life. But underneath the rhythm of work and family, the question kept humming in my chest like a skipped heartbeat. Would Evelyn Morgan ever say sorry? It happened on a Wednesday. The sky was overcast, the kind of dull gray that looked like it had given up trying to rain. Henry invited us for lunch, all of us, at the house. "I can't promise it'll go well," he warned, "but she said she wants to see Lily." I hesitated. "You don't have to forgive her," he added. "Just let her meet the girl she almost never knew." Ethan held my gaze when I told him. "You're not walking into that house alone this time," he said. We arrived just after noon. Lily wore her blue dress, the one with tiny flowers stitched along the collar. She held Mr. Hops tight, but she wasn't nervous, just curious. Evelyn answered the door. She looked exactly the same, hair smooth and unmoved, lips painted with the same coral she wore every Sunday of my childhood, but there were lines now, around her mouth, near her eyes. Her armor had cracks. When she saw Lily, she froze. "This is her," she asked, voice smaller than I'd ever heard. "This is Lily," I said. Lily blinked up at her. "Are you the grandma?" Evelyn nodded. "I think so." "Do you have cookies?" To my surprise, Evelyn smiled soft real. "I made some." Lily brushed past me, following her inside, like she'd just won the lottery. Ethan placed a steady hand on my back. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I'm going anyway." The dining room hadn't changed. Same china cabinet, same chandelier, same wallpaper that felt like a trap. But something was different. Evelyn Morgan didn't sit at the head of the table this time. She sat beside Lily, watching her eat oatmeal cookies like she was memorizing every move. And when Lily offered her a piece of Mr. Hops's imaginary tea, Evelyn played along. "May I have a second cup?" she asked solemnly. "You may," Lily said, pleased. It was surreal. After lunch, Ethan took Lily out back to explore the garden. That left me and Evelyn alone. She poured more tea but didn't speak. Just sat there. Stiff. Silent. I waited. Then finally, "You kept her from me." The words came soft. Accusatory. Familiar. "I protected her from you," I corrected. She flinched. "She asked me why she didn't have grandparents," I said. "Do you know how that felt?" Evelyn stared at her cup. "I imagined she wouldn't even know we existed." "You didn't try." "I didn't know how." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I had said those exact words when I was 18, standing in that same room. "I was angry," she added, "and ashamed." "Of me?" "No," she said. "Of myself, for what I did, for what I let happen." Her voice cracked, and for the first time in my life, I saw it not guilt exactly, but grief. "I've seen every article," she whispered, "every photo, every award. I've kept them. I know," I said. She looked up. "Henry told you." "No," I said. I saw the scrapbook. That stunned her. She pressed her fingers to her lips and her eyes shimmered. I thought if I said sorry, it wouldn't be enough. And if I didn't say it, maybe I wouldn't have to feel it. But you felt it anyway. "Yes." I knotted my own throat tight. "I didn't need you to be perfect, Mom. I just needed you to choose me." Silence stretched. Then quietly, "I'm sorry, Rachel." There it was, small, imperfect, but real. "I'm sorry for the slap, for the words, for letting you leave with nothing. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to try. If you'll let me." I looked out the window where Lily was laughing in the garden, chasing butterflies and Ethan's footsteps. And I realized something: I would never be that girl again, the one begging to be heard, seen, loved. But I could be the woman who ended the silence. "I can't promise you anything," I said, "but I'll think about it." She nodded. "And Mom," I added, "if you ever speak to Lily the way you spoke to me, we're done." "I understand," she whispered. "That was enough, for now." I didn't come back to ask for forgiveness. I came back to reclaim what was mine, my story, my name, my place in the world. But reconciliation, that would come on my terms or not at all. I laid down my boundaries like stakes in the earth. It was after dinner, Lily asleep upstairs in the same room that used to be mine, Ethan, reading quietly beside her with one eye on the baby monitor. Evelyn and Henry sat across from me in the living room, their posture unsure, like children waiting to be graded. I was calm, not out of politeness, but because I had power now, the kind that doesn't need to shout. "I'm not here to patch things up so we can play happy family," I began. "I'm here because Lily asked questions, and because I deserve answers." My mother looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Maybe she sensed this wasn't the version of me she could control. First thing I said, you don't get to treat Lily like some do-over child. She's not here to fix what you broke with me. Henry nodded, already understanding. Evelyn pressed her lips together. Second, there will be no opinions on her clothes, her hobbies, or what she should be doing. If she wants to climb trees or paint her face green, you will cheer her on. That's reasonable, my father said. Evelyn opened her mouth, closed it again. Third, I continued, I'm opening a permanent office here. It'll create jobs. I'm offering you one, Dad, not out of charity, but because you're good at what you do. He blinked. You're serious, I'm building something that matters. And you were always sharp with clients. We could use that. Henry swallowed hard. Thank you. I won't waste it. Then I turned to her. I'm not offering you a job, Mom, but I'm offering access. To Lily. Limited at first, supervised, conditional. Evelyn gave a tight nod, struggling to hold her composure. Understood. And one more thing I said. There are no more secrets. If you're in trouble financially or otherwise, you come clean. If you hide anything, that's the end. They both stiffened. I know the house is falling apart, I said. I know about the medical bills. Evelyn looked down at her lap. Henry let out a long breath. I thought we could manage on our own, he said. You couldn't, I replied. And that's okay, but lying about it isn't. Ethan stepped into the room, silently supporting me from the doorway. I'm not here to save you, I said, standing, but I am offering a way forward. One built on truth, not shame. The way it should have been from the start. Later that night, Ethan wrapped his arms around me as I stared out the hotel window at the quiet town. How do you feel, he asked, like I reclaimed something I didn't even know was missing. Peace. No, not yet, I said, but the terms are clear now, and that's a start. In the weeks that followed, Henry began working part-time at Morgan & Hart's Vermont office. He showed up early, stayed late, and proved himself without asking for special treatment. Evelyn, true to her word, kept her distance until Lily invited her over to our Airbnb rental to help bake cookies. Grandma Evelyn Lilly had said confidently, "Do you know how to use an oven?" I waited for Evelyn to correct her. She didn't. She tied on an apron and asked, "Do you want chocolate chips or sprinkles?" Small shifts. Quiet gestures. That's how healing began. We didn't talk about the slap, or the rain, or the night they turned me away. But we didn't pretend it hadn't happened either. Instead, we created new memories. Ones built not on expectation, but choice. One evening, Lily was playing with Ethan in the backyard, chasing bubbles with the kind of joy only 5-year-olds know. I sat with Evelyn on the porch, sipping iced tea in the golden wash of sunset. She's extraordinary, she said softly. She's free, I replied. That's the difference. Evelyn nodded. I didn't know how to raise someone like you, she admitted. That wasn't my fault. No, she said. It was mine. We sat in silence, the kind that didn't punish this time, the kind that healed. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I never thought possible with her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. There are words you wait your whole life to hear. You imagine how they'll sound, how you'll feel when they finally come. But when the apology arrived, it didn't change the past, it just allowed me to stop bleeding from it. It happened 3 months later. I had flown back to Oregon for a business summit while Ethan stayed in Maple Hill to help Lily settle into her new routine school swimming lessons and grandpa walks every Sunday morning. We'd officially relocated. Not permanently, not yet, but long enough to plant roots. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Vermont still echoed too much, but I had to admit, watching Lily walk into my childhood school building wearing a backpack twice her size and waving at Henry by the gates was something I didn't know I needed to see. The healing was slow, real, uncomfortable, but it was happening. And then Evelyn called me. It was past 9 p.m. She never called. I think I broke something in her, she said. It took me a second to realize she meant herself. She was crying. My mother. Crying. I was folding Lily's laundry, she continued, her voice raw and unfiltered, and I saw her socks. Tiny pink things. And I remembered folding yours. When you were 5, you used to sing to your socks while I matched them. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, barely breathing. I was so proud of you, even then. But the more you pushed, the more I tightened the grip. I thought I was shaping you into someone strong. Instead, I taught you how to disappear. There was silence. Then a whisper. I was wrong, Rachel. It didn't feel rehearsed. It felt broken open. I slapped you. I shamed you. I kicked you out into the dark because I couldn't control you, and I've regretted it every day since. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. You waited 11 years, I said. I was a coward, she admitted, and you were braver than I ever knew how to be. I could have said so many things. It's too late. You don't deserve my grace. Where was this when I needed it most? But instead, I asked her the question I had carried like a stone in my chest for a decade. Did you ever think I'd fail? She exhaled. No, she said. I was afraid you'd succeed without me. The honesty nearly knocked me over. And in that moment, I understood her silence had never been strength. It had been envy, insecurity, fear. But now there was something else in her voice. Humility. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, not to cry, but to remember how far I'd come from that porch, that slap, that girl in the rain. I believe you, I said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. When I returned to Maple Hill, Evelyn didn't hug me. She didn't cry again. She just handed me a small box. Inside was a letter, written in her hand, to Lily. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I looked her in the eye and said, "Thank you." And for once, she didn't speak. She just nodded. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked at me with that same clarity she always did when something big was shifting. "Mommy," she whispered, "are you happy?" I paused. "I'm getting there," I said. Little by little, and she smiled as if that was enough. Because it was. I thought success would be enough. That building something big and bulletproof would keep me safe from ever needing anyone again. But healing doesn't come from walls. It comes from opening the doors you swore you'd never touch again. The Vermont office was thriving. 3 months after launch, we were profitable ahead of projections. Local business owners were hungry for real strategy, not just gimmicks and glossy flyers. My team, mostly young, eager, half of them first-generation college grads, were like firecrackers waiting to be lit. It should have been enough, and in many ways it was. But one night, sitting alone in the corner office, I stared out at the sleepy street below and felt unsettled, like something was still missing. That's when I realized for the first time in years I wasn't just surviving anymore. And when you finally step out of survival mode, you're left with a quiet question you've spent years too busy to ask, now what? That now what turned into a shift. I started arriving later not because I didn't care, but because I wanted breakfast with Lily. I took Fridays off when Ethan was traveling so I could be the one who picked her up from kindergarten. I wasn't just rebuilding my past, I was rebuilding my present, and I had to make sure it didn't look like the life I ran from. Evelyn and Henry invited us over once a week now. At first, it was awkward, like a performance where no one quite remembered their lines, but gradually the edges softened. Evelyn, once a control freak over table settings, let Lily set the plates even if she put the forks on the wrong side. Henry started telling stories, real ones, about growing up with nothing and how marrying Evelyn was his way out. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained a lot. One afternoon, while Ethan and I were walking Lily to the bookstore, she asked the kind of question only a child could ask with total innocence. Was Grandma Evelyn always nice? We paused. Not always, I said honestly. She used to be very strict, and sometimes she made choices that hurt people. Did she hurt you? Ethan glanced at me. He didn't jump in. He trusted me to handle it. Yes, I said gently, but I think she's trying to be different now. Lily considered that lips pursed. I think I like her, she said, but I don't have to love her yet, right? I smiled, stunned by her clarity. No, baby. You don't have to love anyone you're not ready to. That night, I told Evelyn what Lily had said. For a moment, she looked wounded. Then, quietly, "She's right." I nodded. "She's a lot like me." "No," Evelyn said. "She's better." That admission, not offered out of flattery, but truth, settled something deep inside me. We weren't pretending anymore. We were doing the real work. We started therapy together, not all at once. First, just Evelyn and me. Then Henry joined. Eventually, Ethan came along to support. Lily was too young, but I kept the door open for when she wanted to ask her own questions. In those sessions, we untangled years of expectations, fear, pride, and generational trauma. Evelyn talked about her own mother, a woman colder than Vermont winters. Henry admitted that keeping the peace had felt like his only power in the marriage. I didn't let any of it become an excuse, but it became context, and that context gave me tools. I stopped waiting for a perfect ending. Instead, I focused on progress. I stopped needing Evelyn to say the right thing all the time. I stopped looking for reasons to prove I was still angry, because I wasn't, not like before. And when you let go of needing someone to pay for the past, you give yourself permission to enjoy the present, even if it's messy, even if it's new. The day I signed the lease for our second Vermont office, Ethan brought Lily by with a bouquet of wildflowers from the farmer's market. She handed them to me with a grin. "Congratulations, Mommy." "Thanks, baby," I said, hugging her. Ethan smiled. "You're not just building a company anymore." "No, I said I'm building a home." And for the first time, I truly meant it. For years, I believed my legacy would be the company, the empire, the story of the girl who was thrown away and rose anyway. But legacy is more than a business plan. It's what lives in the hearts of those who come after you. It started with a letter. Lily had been assigned a family tree project in her class. Simple enough names, pictures, some glue, and colored pencils. But when I saw the blank poster board spread across the dining table that evening, my heart caught in my chest. "Can I put Grandma Evelyn on it?" she asked, already coloring a flower border. Ethan looked at me gently, giving me space. "Yes," I said finally, "if you want to." "I do. She's learning how to be kind." That sentence stopped me cold. Not "she's kind," not "she's perfect." She's learning. That was legacy, not perfection progress. We worked on the family tree together. Lily drew smiley faces on each name. Evelyn's picture, clipped from a recent photo at the fall fair, sat beside Henry's, and beside them a new addition, a photo of me speaking at a business conference, arms mid-gesture, Lily in my lap. Her teacher later said it was the most unconventional but empowering family tree she'd ever seen. I smiled, because we'd grown something unconventional, but strong. Later that month, I was invited to speak at a regional leadership summit. Not as a marketer, but as a woman who had rebuilt her life from nothing. The title of the panel, Redefining Family and Forging Personal Power. I almost declined, not because I didn't believe in the message, but because standing on that stage meant claiming the entire story, not just the glossy success parts. But Ethan reminded me, that story changed people, starting with you. So I went. I stood under the lights, mic in hand, and began like this. When I was 18, I was kicked out of my home for saying no, not to drugs, not to crime, but to a marriage I didn't want. I left with a backpack and a college acceptance letter no one ever read, and I built a life from that no. The room fell into a silence that felt sacred. I spoke for 40 minutes, told them about Lily, about Maple Hill, about Evelyn's silence and the first apology that cracked it, about how forgiveness is a practice, not a moment. When I stepped off stage, people lined up, some crying, some silent. One woman whispered, "I said no too," and they haven't spoken to me since. But now I think I made the right call. I squeezed her hand. "You did." A week later, Evelyn asked if she could take Lily to a museum exhibit downtown. Alone. My first instinct was no. But then I looked at Lily, who was already bouncing in her shoes, listing off questions she wanted to ask about fossils. And I looked at Evelyn. She didn't plead. She didn't push. She just waited. "Yes," I said finally. "You can take her." That night, Lily came home full of stories how Grandma let her ask as many questions as she wanted, how she let her eat 2 scoops of ice cream even though it wasn't the plan. And then she said something I'll never forget. I think she used to be someone else, but now she's just Grandma. It wasn't a perfect relationship. There were still moments Evelyn offering unsolicited parenting advice, me holding my breath when she bristled at Lily's messiness, but now we recovered faster. We named the tension instead of letting it fester. We told the truth even when it trembled, and maybe that's what legacy is. Teaching the next generation that love doesn't require silence, that respect isn't obedience, that boundaries are not betrayal. In my office above my desk, I hung 2 photos. One, the day we opened Morgan and Hart's first branch. The second, a candid shot of Lily, Evelyn, and Henry on a park bench, laughing blurry with motion. They sit side by side. A reminder that I had built 2 things, a company and a second chance. I used to think closure meant walking away with your head high. Now I know real closure is when you can walk back into the same place that broke you, and it doesn't own you anymore. It was Lily's 6th birthday. She wanted a party at the park, the same one I used to pass by every day on my way to high school, watching other kids laugh while I rehearsed how to smile at the dinner table. Now it was her playground. Ethan helped set up balloons. Henry handled the folding chairs. Evelyn brought homemade cupcakes with hand-piped names. I didn't recognize this version of her hair in a soft braid flower still clinging to her sleeve, and maybe that was the point. We had invited her kindergarten classmates, a few co-workers, even Jade Carter, my childhood best friend who drove up from Boston with her wife and twins. She'd been my lifeline after the exile, and seeing her laughing in the grass with Lily, I felt the full circle snap gently shut. There was music, bubbles, too much sugar, and then something small that changed everything. After the candles were blown out and the kids ran off to play tag, Lily took my hand and tugged. "Mommy," she said, "can I show them your old room?" I froze. "You want to go to Grandma's house?" She nodded. "Grandma says she saved it for you, but I want to see it." Ethan looked at me. Evelyn stood a few feet away, silent, uncertain. The girl in me wanted to say no, but the woman I had become, she was ready. We drove over, just after sunset. The house was quiet, painted in warm golden light that softened the corners of every harsh memory. Lily ran ahead, Mr. Hops flopping in one hand, shoes thudding on the familiar porch. Evelyn opened the door. I didn't change anything she said. I couldn't. I followed Lily up the stairs. She pushed open the door marked with my old handwritten sign, "Keep Out Seriously." It was all still there. The posters, the old desk, even the floral comforter I used to complain about. But the energy had changed. It no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a story I had finished and filed away. Lily sat on the bed and swung her legs. "This was your room." I nodded. "You didn't have stuffed animals." I had one, I smiled, but I left him behind. She held out Mr. Hops. "He can stay here too." "So it's not lonely." Evelyn stood in the doorway watching. I turned to her. "I never thought I'd be back here without the weight." She nodded quietly. "And I never thought I'd deserve to have you back." We stood in silence. Then Lily asked Mommy, "Can I sleep here one night?" Ethan from the hallway chimed in. "We'd have to find Mr. Hops a toothbrush." We all laughed, and in that moment I felt it not the thunderclap of healing, but the quiet hum of something stronger. Peace. Later, as we packed up to leave, Evelyn walked me to the car. She reached into her pocket and handed me something small, a folded photograph. I opened it. It was me, age 7, holding a cardboard sign that said, "Future Boss." "I found it last week," she said. "You've always known who you were." "I just needed space to become her," I replied. She reached for my hand, not to hold it, but to squeeze it once. A silent pact. No more erasing. No more control. Just choice. Back at the hotel, Lily curled up next to Ethan and whispered, "Today was the best day ever." Because of the party he asked. "No," she yawned. "Because Mommy wasn't sad anymore." I stepped out onto the balcony, the night air cool against my skin. 11 years ago, I had stood in the rain with nothing but a backpack and a spine full of defiance. Now, I had built a life, a business, a family. In the house that once broke me, I had walked back in and walked out whole. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to remember. You can walk away. You can come back. And most of all, you can write the ending yourself.